To order. Yeah. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
I was actually gonna ask you.
All right, we'll start with the first item for discussion, planning and zoning discussion of C3 uses. James, would you like to kick that one off?
Sure. This was in regards to an RBA that was submitted for the last meeting. We did have a conversation at planning and zoning in regards to the request. You may recall that the board at the last meeting asked for some preliminary input from planning and zoning regarding whether or not to proceed with any changes to the C3 conditional uses. And I mean, in short, the consensus of the group was that at this time that they didn't, they were not recommending any changes to the C3 either permitted or conditional uses. So now it's before the board if they so choose to make a formal request or a formal recommendation for a change. It would have to have a public hearing. We would have to have it posted and go through the normal public hearing process because of the section of code that we will be changing since it is part of the zoning code. And so we could get that posted, but we would not have time to get it posted to be on the April agenda for the planning and zoning. So it would have to go on May if the board still chose to move forward with the proposal. Just because there's a 15-day requirement to be able to get it published in time.
My interest there was primarily in discussion. Really wanted to, and I meant to be there that night, but I was stuck downtown. Really wanted to hear what their thoughts were about the seeming. Some uses like chiropractic offices allow under CP and others like insurance offices.
There was, and it was recorded, it is posted online. So if you'd like to listen to the entirety of the conversation from all of the those who spoke, there was only a few commissioners who really spoke on the issue. I think at this point there just didn't seem in their mind to be a compelling reason to make any changes, especially as we start to look at, still continuing to look at whether or not there might be changes that may come out of the Town Square Visioning Committee process. And I think overall, there was a few comments that in general, if we're going to make changes, we should change the zoning as opposed to changing the uses in the zoning. But there was not a lot of conversation about it, but that was kind of the gist of what was being stated.
Anyone wish to take further action on that? Or does that suffice?
I think I would generally agree. Wait and see where the Town Square Vision stuff goes. What's going to happen there? After the meeting when we talked about that, I did take a look at refresh my memory on all the C3 uses, and I had it in front of me. If I look at things like chiropractor or some of the other things versus other things that might want to be in that. The only thing that I could really think of that makes them different, that is a really important difference in a retail district. You need to go see your chiropractor. Can't do that on the phone. It's not just when it's where. So you're right, that chiropractor is still driving foot traffic to the retail. That was kind of the one thing that me. So I have to go get that service in person. Call somebody up and never see the person.
One thing I will, I guess I probably should bring this up because I did this research after our last meeting. We did have a conversation with our planning and development manager, Todd Stryler, also with Tom Weiss, our city engineer, and our city attorney, Mr. Young, about just in general, how other cities and other communities approach zoning. And it's different from community to community, but one of the things that is more than likely probably going to be something that comes out of the town square visioning process is once we've agreed to, once the committee and then planning and zoning is kind of agreed to the types of uses they would like to see, or the types of buildings they'd like to see in the prescribed areas, it might behoove us to look at additional zoning districts. If you go to like O'Fallon has a, you can see this just by Highway K, right? They just let everything go on Highway K. But if you're going to go up into like Old Town, we're talking about more of a neighborhood, and I think they actually call it like a neighborhood retail district. A different look, different feel, different uses. And that's what they're trying to drive there. Those are what's more appropriate for areas like in O'Fallon Main Street. St. Peter's does the same in their little downtown little part of St. Peter's. I could foresee that something like that occur when we get to talking about Town Square Avenue here, what that looks like, Town Square, you know, down by the big shopping center versus Town Square, Post and Hanley, versus Technology, whether this is specified zoning uses that are geared towards specific types of development in the future. So, and talking to John Young, that was one of the reasons why C3 retail was written by him in the first place. That was at the behest of the board, to try to preserve a strong retail element in a retail area, which is what we'll probably want to continue to do, but we'll probably want to change what that looks like for different parts of town. We have, you know, C1 through 3. There's a lot of places that you go to. They've got 6 or 7 different commercial type, you know, like small town or downtown or neighborhood commercial uses districts. We might want to go in that direction to help protect the integrity of what we decide to move forward with our future commercial development, but then also just kind of protect the neighboring communities, the neighboring neighborhoods that might abut some of those future developments. So I think that's probably what direction we'll get to once the committees finish their report. I think first step is what do they want to see, and then second is we'll talk about what legal, zoning, or other changes need to be made to accompany vision.
Right. More discussion on that. We can go to item 2, review of tonight's meeting agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up?
Yeah, so on Bill 2417, we talked about the last meeting. And we communicated, I know Alderman Johnson had as well, to Sherry and Tyson Johnson, the couple whose home was involved in the accident with the ice storm. So they,
About 18.
Well, you might notice there's a numbering issue
Oh, that's right.
on the agenda. So there's a 15, a 15, a 17, and a 17, but yes, he's talking about what would be 18.
Oh, it's right on my agenda.
Oh, it is right on.
Okay.
Okay.
thought I was just really tired.
No,
You may still be.
Oh, okay, so 2418, number 4.
Number 4.
Scope number
Gotcha.
4. But yeah, so Mark and I chatted with her, Alderman Johnson, I chatted with her and Tyson, and they wanted to make sure that the board understood that they were in support of the stop sign. Anything that would help mitigate further accidents like that is welcome by Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. So I assured her that I'd let the board know her and Mr. Johnson's wishes, and as we move to vote on this tonight.
And I didn't know on this ordinance if they inquired about before having a sign ahead, since then a bottom of the hill, can we have a stop ahead sign? Does that have to be an ordinance or?
So for any kind of actual traffic control, we would have to have an ordinance, but for informational purposes, and our intent was to put up a temporary informational sign. I don't know that it would be necessary permanently, but we would definitely put up one temporarily because people in that subdivision are not going to be used to it being a stop sign for some time. And so our intent is to give some warning. And then at some point, hopefully people will recognize that it's changed. I'll tell you, I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive that it ever was a yield sign because I got to that point when I visited their house, I stopped.
Yeah, so
Because you don't go to a intersection and
I've
go, I'll
always
just
stopped
keep-
there.
right, like, hey, I'm just gonna keep on going. It's an intersection. So, but yeah, certainly we're going to put up some informational signs ahead of time just to let people know that, hey, this is a stop sign now.
I would suggest doing a permanent stop ahead because even people coming there that's not familiar with it, if it's an icy situation or something like that, they're going downhill. That's where the whole situation comes in. Well, at least you're warning them ahead of time. There's a stop sign coming up.
You know,
I would assume that if you're gonna put the stop ahead sign, it's something that might be a little bit more that would stand out, because that means they're gonna miss the stop sign too, potentially. Something that might stand out more is to put some yellow hazard markers at the bottom of the hill, and that would also serve as, and I'm not sure as far as personal property and where we could put those at, how that would work. But I would say that would serve more of as a warning as well as another additional inhibitor of cars sliding into their house.
I mean,
That would be my first thought, to additional measurement than stop sign.
whether it's temporary or permanent, that's gonna be like, you take it out or not, like you're gonna put it in there and it's gonna sit there for however long it's gonna sit there. I would think that just based on what all of us have said behavior wise. The visitors are probably not the problem. It's the people that live there that know that it's a yield sign, that not a stop sign. Most people would probably start to stop and be slowing down because it's. But at the end of the day, you're gonna put something there and then you're gonna decide, take it out or do we leave it?
Test that theory, the vehicle that hit their house, was that a neighborhood resident or was it outsider?
That I do not know. Mark, do you know?
I don't remember what you
Visitor.
told me. I don't
We don't
know.
have to tell names.
Yeah,
It could also
I'm
be-
not certain.
it could also be a frequent visitor to.
Yeah.
To see their phone.
I think probably.
They were speeding in icy conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear from just the conversations and I know that the aldermen have been there and I've been there, the staff have been there. Nobody is trying to stop at that stop sign and sliding across into their yard. These people, the people are doing it are trying to take a slow down and take a turn, because it is a yield sign.
Maybe.
And they're all, that's how they hit where they hit, and that's how everybody keeps running into the yard where they're running into it. So I don't think that the grade is not that steep. So nobody's going down Old Orchard and then trying to stop and go, oh my God, this is, straight downhill. It's a very low grade. It's just because people are not stopping.
I would assume we'll need one of our. Controls finest to go through a little bit too after it goes into.
Yeah.
Really increase awareness.
We can do that. And one other thing we can do is we can park our city vehicle out there within, eye shot right there at the intersection, just to kind of give people the visual of, oh, somebody's here watching it, even if they're not. So, but yeah, we can do that as well.
They also, they were able to successfully move at least one large boulder in front of the pathway where the cars, plural, had been going into their yard over the past several years. So the HOA was able to work with them on that. So hopefully that'll be an additional actual breaker that'll stop any other traffic, but
I mean.
yeah. Good point. That's all I have. Well, I have something else related to the audio, but I think I guess we can open it up for discussion. My plan was just to read it in the main, not read, but to discuss it in the main
I'll
meeting.
wait till then.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we're short on some of the audience that we'll have during the main meeting. But I did send out my findings to the Board of Aldermen for the sake of discussion for that, and I would open the floor up to anybody who did read it, as well as any other city staff who everybody here has received it. If anybody has any questions before then, I'm happy to discuss that, but I will be bringing it up in the primary meeting as well. But discussion purposes only, I'll open the floor up for anybody who has any questions.
I read it and appreciate you doing that. And you found pretty much what I expected.
Good. Got due diligence.
Yes.
Regarding the agenda, I will, just for the sake of time, since we've got plenty of it, let everybody know that we do have this public hearing for the CUP and the site plan. You'll notice that the CUP is on the agenda, but the site plan is not. The CUP was approved by P and Z, but the site plan was tabled. So there's nothing to say that you can't move forward tonight with the CUP if you so choose. That does not move the project forward. The site plan still has to be approved. And there were some minor issues on the site plan that mostly related to the specificity of some information that was requested to be on the site plan. So I would expect that to be out of the next agenda, but the second April meeting after P and Z, that's what they're looking for. That would also, that'd be Bill 2415 and the public hearing. We would probably leave the public hearing open, John, Mr. Young, afterwards, because we have the public hearing listed. Well, the public hearing, the site plan doesn't require the public hearing. It's really just
On.
so you can go ahead and finish the CUP public hearing tonight. And then you'll get the bill next meeting. UD final plan. Obviously, we know that's or 2416. It shouldn't.
That's a super.
Yeah, that's Cedar Stone. I'm sorry. I was blanking on it for a minute. It's like, what's on Post Road? Because I think about it being on technology.
Yeah.
So that's just the final plan for the residential on Cedar Stone. Which they have got a grading permit. They have been moving forward with that over there. You might get some calls asking about what work is being done over there. They are accessing it through technology right now, but they're not actually doing the work on technology. Just so you know, because there has been some questions about that, but in order to access it off of Post, it would create some traffic issues and some access issues. So all the construction right now is coming off of technology. They're accessing the lower lot. Obviously, we have the Prairie Encore. It's a final plat, a record plat rather. And then Bill 2418, which we mentioned. As far as Bill 2411, I don't think Mr. Moss is here, but I was given notice that the final part of the agreement, which was the releasing of some letters of they call it. There was
They were
an omen. There was an IOU. I don't know
Yeah,
what
they were
they're
waiting
calling
for
it.
something.
They were waiting for a release of an IOU to their HOA, and I can't remember what they called it, but that's been released. Payments have been made. We've got proof of that. So 2411, you should be ready to move forward with.
What's all the grading that's for technology? So, are we reading?
That's the Post Roads.
That's what we were just talking about.
They're going from technology to the back to Cedar Stone.
Oh,
They're just- yeah, they're-
back.
They're just accessing it there. I mean, they've had to do some clearing to get to it.
Yeah, there was already a residential access road to
Yeah.
the house that they tore down.
Yeah.
So we, at the pre-con meeting, thought it was best if they use that, be less disturbance on Post Road and
Good idea.
easier, give them more room to park and things of that.
I have some comments that I would like to share about the proposed goodwill from some of my residents in Ward 1. Now is the appropriate time.
Sure.
All right, so we're aware of where it's situated. It was formerly the snow cone shop. Now it's going to be a 2,400 square foot, proposed square foot warehouse for Goodwill. Residents are wondering why we needed another Goodwill location. We have one at K and we have one in Lake St. Louis. They're both approximately 3 miles away. And I know I personally make donations there and I usually go to K and it's a drive-through and there's never usually more than 1 or 2 cars ahead of me. One of my biggest concerns and a concern that residents have been talking about is that intersection at Bryan and Faisy. We already know that Prairie Encore is going to add traffic to that area. Currently, when I turn onto Fizey from Stump, there's a line of cars trying to make a left onto Fizey. It's an area that gets a lot of traffic. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if they can tell us, maybe they can because they have other such locations that are drop-off only, what kind of impact there would be for the drop-off vehicles, because that's gonna be more of the activity than the semi. When I talked to Jason with Goodwill, he said the semi-traffic 2 trucks a week, maybe. So what I'm more concerned about, what residents are more concerned about is the car activity. Other concerns is, well, we don't know if a traffic study has been done. And yes, I know, sometimes, traffic studies are kind of, they can be a good indicator and sometimes they cannot. So I'm not sure about that. Residents were worried about how the donations are going to be monitored and maintained after hours. That some of that was addressed with the Goodwill at the meeting. They were talking about having some cameras and stuff up because people are worried about dumping after hours and then people, the looky-loos that might come at 3 a.m. to go through it. So there's those kind of concerns. And there was also comments from residents that there seems to always be a strong preference to adding commercial activity that generates sales tax revenue, and this would not. And when I asked what kind of, what could that be? What could the purpose be for that? Residents were saying maybe some sort of service like a dental office or something like that, where the traffic would not be continuous during the day, which I would, again, I don't really know because that hasn't really been addressed. Those are just the kind of concerns that residents are talking about. And I get it. I think that the darting, the Fizey Bryant Road intersection is a problem, especially if you talk to residents like at Pinnacle Point and Whispering Pines that live closer to that. There's a lot of accidents, these happen. So then adding this to the mix, it's problematic for some residents. And don't get me wrong, Goodwill, charitable organization, I get that. But you have other, it's not like you have to drive to Nebraska to make a donation. You have to drive 3 miles either way.
Yeah, I drove by there the other day, kind of assessing this. I've never driven a 18-wheeler. I don't, but I've driven some pretty big, trucks and tractors with pretty big trailers. And as I was trying to figure out how the mechanics of all that would work, it was hard for me to wrap my head around that as well. I understand that that's, something that we discussed, but I'm kind of having a hard time. And I also agree, it's kind of a prime piece of real estate for commercial, and that's something that we're really in need of, and we've skylined that many times over the past year and a half about the need for commercial and tax revenue. And I think that's a really good spot for it. So I share some of those same sentiments, and just want to share with the board as well, since we're talking about this. I like Goodwill as well. I've been a patron of Goodwill for many years, and I also donate to them. But I agree. I'm not sure about. I'm not completely certain on that being a good location for a drop off or any sort of activity. It's not going to bring economic revenue to a small city like ours.
I don't know if this board has gotten the presentation from the Goodwill representative yet, but about this, you may recall in the early plans included a retail component, primarily a restaurant component. And unfortunately, because of the covenants and indentures that remain on the property from when it was originally all developed, they're without permission from Quick Trip, which Quick Trip was approached and they do not give permission for them to develop as such. They cannot sell any kind of food, drinks, or anything at that location. So that's one of the reasons why the retail component that wasn't initially planned was left off, because the retail that they had envisioned there was some sort of a fast dining, fast food element, sandwich shop, something of that nature. So I know that seriously limits us to what we can put their retail generating, or unless it was some sort of a specialty retail shop, clothier, jewelry shop, you know, it's just something specialty. But that is one of the issues I know that we have with that site.
That was one of my questions because the original presentation was fast food, so, or Starbucks or whatever. That thing there, and I was all in favor of it because of that. But I mean, now just the traffic congestion. Driving there. I don't think it's in the best interest. That's just.
Yeah, when I hear that, there's no question that Fizey and Brian is actually got a lot of work to do there. A Goodwill alone, though, I think it's probably one of the Goodwill drop off alone is probably one of the least intensive uses of that land as far as traffic goes. But I'm with Alderman Johnson. One of the things that really excited me about that was the prospect of having some kind of revenue coming into the city, something for residents beyond just go drop off the Goodwill. The dual use sounded really appealing. It's disheartening to hear that there's such strict indentures that most of the uses.
It's a property, why is it those such? Because they own the property, Quick Trip?
It's not, the Quick Trip doesn't own the property, but usually when like a large scale development like that develops, it's usually one owner or one developer. As they sell off pieces, oftentimes they enter into covenants about adjacent properties not being sold for other uses. So for instance, just like Town Square, you know, anywhere where there's a Schnucks, I'll just say, anywhere where you get a large, they own maybe their small sliver of it, but when they develop that whole thing, typically a large grocer like that, an anchor goes in this case, Quick Trip goes in as the anchor. They'll put legal covenants that are in perpetuity, unfortunately, that dictate the uses, the types of uses for adjacent properties.
I could see where they'd put in, you can't put a 7-Eleven there, something like that, but I mean, I would think, you know.
Well, but with it,
They sell sandwiches.
yeah, just even, if you know gas stations, I mean, they make most of them, I mean, literally any convenience store operator will tell you gas is a loss leader.
Yeah.
I mean, you go there for gas, but they make money off of selling you service.
Might
pay chips. What's that?
So it might pay people like.
Yeah.
That parcel, is it still owned by the people that owned it when Quick Trip was put in?
It's being marketed by a commercial group. I don't know who owned it way back when. Kim, do you recall?
It's still the
Same.
same.
So the same people responsible for the covenants on the property?
Correct.
Basically.
On the application, it says GSR Ventures LLC, which was the original developer.
The only way to get around it is to have either Quick Trip release it, or there's always, well, which I don't think anybody wants to go through, is eminent domain. You can always break a covenant that way, but that's really only two options. Was I missing one, John?
All right. Any more discussion on the tonight's agenda? Move on to staff communication, city attorney,
I have nothing.
city engineer.
Yes, I'll give some highlights. We're working diligently on kind of phase 2 of the grants this year. We're working on the county road board applications. They've changed all those applications this year, so there's some different things we have to do. But the good news is we're adding some things in to benefit the city, such as the matching money for the Henning Road TAP grant. As a reminder, also the bridge deck, redoing the bridge deck. We've done some research on that, on the Henning Road bridge deck. We're going to include that in the grant. Also met out there at Brook Lane. They've already done some repair work in the subdivision. Culverts have been replaced, and but the paving work probably won't begin until June. The next item is Cedar Stone. So just even today. We're working on the final review of the construction improvement plans, which we're just about there. But one of the big things, because the county road board changed some things on the post road grant, we're incorporating those into the Cedar Stone right-of-way dedication. And so we're working with Vols as we speak on making sure we have easements, proper right-of-way, things that we're trying to get as much as we can. However, obviously, we can't just take everything because they're trying to build some homes. So it's a balance, and we're working through that with Vols. But it's going well. I believe we're very close there to having a good balance on the right-of-way on the west side of Post Road. Nothing further unless you have questions.
Alderman? The reason. All right, city administrator.
Oh, saved the best for last. I appreciate that. Did want to, thank you. At least I get one check.
I'll do it for you.
Good, 'cause my
I
shoulder
smiled.
hurts. Did want to give everybody an update, and I will give a full update to the board tomorrow and to my mailing list I'm been putting together. But as of the moment, what I have for the Stump Road project, hoping to have some clear timelines tomorrow, because we had some meetings about it today with our prime contractor as well as some of the utilities. But you'll notice there's been 2 message boards over on FISE, also message boards over on N, talking about the upcoming closure at Stump Road for the work that's going to be done there for the road replacement. Currently, we've got Spire who's out there, and they expect to be out there for about another week to week and a half to complete their relocation of their gas main. There's also some prep work being done around the site. We're expecting the SWIP, the stormwater protection best management practices, or we call them BMPs, to start going up on Monday, the 25th. We're expecting maybe some tree clearing as early as maybe tomorrow or Friday. It may not happen until Monday. It just kind of depends on utility locates. Again, I'll have a better idea tomorrow once we've gotten confirmation from all the utilities that either their work has been done or their utility locates have been complete. So Spiral will continue to be working outside of Whispering Pines, like I said, for about another week and a half. Stage 1, which will entail closing Stump Road completely from Sancho's, which is right there where the apartment complex is, all the way to Highway N. We'll expect that to start soon. We don't have an exact date yet until we've gotten Spire completed and some of the utility coordination complete. As soon as I get an exact start date and timeline, I will send that out to the board. We also have a social media plan for getting that information out, as well as we were working today on creating and we'll be pushing out a sign up list for email updates as they come in. So anybody who's interested, and I already have a number of emails from residents I've been speaking to, but we'll have an email list, give a regular update of what's happening currently and timeline updates as they happen with our contractors. So just for the next week and a half, expect to see just some small crews and prep work being done on and staging of the site. The traffic control is being set up and surveying is being done with some minor tree clearing, and then the utilities finishing their work. So hopefully by tomorrow, end of business, I'll have a full schedule, at least for this first stage, from our contractor, and I will make sure I get that out to you, as well as we'll get it out posted through all of our social media outlets, push it out to print media and as well, and then to the email list. So any questions about where we're at with Stump Road? Okay. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and this is just maybe some food for thought. I know the mayor's not here, but something that we've been talking about for a while is our capital planning, but even more so, knowing that we're going to have 2 new aldermen join us here in the next month, I was going to suggest that we look at having a strategic planning, we can call it a retreat workshop, but something more than just an hour before a board meeting, where we, as a group, get together. I would encourage us to look at having an outside facilitator come through, something that staff can facilitate, but oftentimes these are good things for staff to participate in. But have to engage in strategic plan for the board to do goal setting, to really get to what it is that individual board members are looking to do, getting everybody kind of in a consensus as far as goals we'd like to see moving forward. It'll help us with our budget planning in the future. You also might recall that we did talk about this upcoming year working towards a GFOA, a Government Finance Officers Association certified budget. That does include having budgetary goals and strategic goals for the community that are listed as part of the budget, and then obviously recognizing that the budget should be reflecting those goals. So part of this also, of course, will be capital planning. I do have a big stack of capital projects that we'll look at when we go through this process. But I felt like we should start with a broader scope of what we want to do in this community, and then focus down on planning over the next 5 years, capital improvements that would coincide with those broader strategic goals. I was thinking probably sometime in the May, June, in part because I would like Town Square Vision Steering Committee and Planning and Zoning to finish. First Town Square Vision Steering Committee to finish, and Planning and Zoning to hopefully adopt whatever it is that they finalize before you get to the national strategic plan, so that we can incorporate the wishes of Planning and Zoning in the committee into a broader plan. So something to think about. I'd love your thoughts on it. I've been involved in many of these over the years. I've had them staff driven before. We've had some really great facilitators that come in. Usually it's, a morning. It's probably the best thing to do, is like a Saturday morning. People don't like to go through Saturday mornings.
Let's say Saturday mid-morning.
Or Saturday morning. Trying to get us maybe out of here before baseball games or in the afternoon or whatever, but if anybody has any thoughts about it now, it'd be great. If not, if you want to think about it.
I have a
I'll-
question.
Yeah.
Have we used facilitators before?
I know that the only time I know this was done was, I think, the former city administrator facilitated the last one we did, which is possible. I mean, I've facilitated in the private industry before. All the ones I've been involved with as a member of a board, I can tell you, we've always had a facilitator come in, because the staff usually play a support role in that process versus trying to facilitate something as well as participate.
Give any idea what that outside party would cost?
That's what I was gonna ask.
So in the best deals that I've seen, we've experienced is to go oftentimes maybe to like university. We've used University of St. Louis's public policy program before. I'm sure Linwood probably has something similar. You can go to outside consultants as well. I'm sure they'll probably cost a little bit more, but
Do they typically host those at their own facilities as well?
typically they've been, we've done them they wouldn't necessarily have their own facility. Usually this wouldn't be like a big firm. It would be a consultant.
Classroom on campus, I guess what I was.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sometimes we've done them in City Hall, sometimes we've done them offsite. It really just depends on what the board would feel more comfortable. In my experience, getting offsite is a good opportunity for the board to feel comfortable, to kind of open up, to feel like this is not a rigid sit around a white plastic table, or even in a classroom setting. So usually it's, breakfast or brunch, breakout sessions, work we'll work through it together, and then they'll take that information, and they'll come back with an actual report that the committee or the board rather can look at.
So I think it's a good idea. We did one with the city administrator a few years ago. I'd say the two ones that I've done with other organizations I've been part of, to me, the biggest advantage of having a facilitator, and it's significant, is well, the first is they do it regularly, then you're getting somebody it's what they do. So that's awesome. The piece that I always liked about the ones is that I was part of is that in that instance where staff was participating, it also, I think, opens up to a lot of can open up to a lot of opposing viewpoints. And in that case, at least nobody feels that like an opposing viewpoint is controlled. Like that person is really just in a good discussion. And so we do get pretty open and candid conversations where when it doesn't happen that way, maybe one side or the other shuts down a little bit. They're running. Even if it takes a pretty strong person. I think obviously you don't know how much it's going to cost you ahead of time, but generally somebody who's done it. Just open everything up.
That's very true. I mean, there's certainly a value to making sure that everybody is engaged, that everybody feels like they can participate. And by everybody, I mean members of the board. I mean, it's no secret. I served on and presided over some very, very split groups of people on boards. And I can tell you that we've done these before. I mean, those might have been the only time where we actually all got along.
Yeah.
But you know what? For one Saturday, we were all on the same page. And it's after that, you try to look back to what you know, sort of unity that you built on that, you know, that common idea of serving the community. You kind of unveil that in that meeting, right? In that plan, by everybody realizing that, okay, we're all here for the same reason. We might have different ways of doing it. But that's a good way to for us to plan a path forward.
No, I 100% agree. And I think it's a simple sort of example. It's like, okay, well, if you're the facilitator and I come in and go, I really think that we should put a pocket park over in or two right now. And you ask the very simple and straightforward question that I actually want to answer to. Well, why would you want to do that? Why doesn't James think my idea is a good idea, right? Like, no, it's just facilitating the discussion on it, right? So, and that's why I think like situations like that, because you want to challenge those things, and it's a lot easier for an independent facilitator to make sure. And nobody's taking it personally because they're independent. I'll tell them.
Yeah, I agree with you, for the facility doesn't have a stake in like accomplishing what we need to accomplish. It doesn't get sidetracked, and that's the other problem I see with somebody doing it from staff. You get sidetracked, next thing you're off on a limb somewhere and never get back to the program. But the only thing I would ask, and I'm all in favor of doing it, is that we get a date out there plenty early so people can get it on their calendars and that, because they all have this.
Yeah, speaking of date, I have concerns about trying to do it in May or June with new aldermen, just because they get in here, have one or two meetings, and all of a sudden we're in a 5-year planning, capital planning discussion. We don't want them to run away right away. Let's push that back. I was July, August. Give them time to get their feet under them and get ready for the fun that is capital planning.
You're obviously not going anywhere in July, are you?
I would
For elections, I know I gotta sit through it.
I think May is probably too early. I'd agree with that, but end of June or July, because it's gonna do it, you're gonna build something up, but then it's like now everybody's gonna run with it and give them the budget process, and if you wait too long into like August, now you're putting strains on getting budget together and
What I'll do is first I'll explore a few facilitators, get pricing, so we have an idea of what we're working with. And then I'll also get an idea about what their availability is generally, what their timeframes would be, because obviously there is some lead time goes into this. There's preparation that they do. some information and data that they pull. So I'll get that information and I'll come back with both sort of a budget, basic timeline, and maybe a couple ideas of facilitators that the board can meet, see who they feel comfortable with, because that's an important part of it. And then maybe we can get something hammered away here. The second meeting in April.
I was thinking
That's one of my-
4th of July weekend or something, you know?
Go away. You have one alderman show up.
Yeah,
And
I would be
Not
more,
in a good condition.
I would be more supportive of a couple months after the new aldermen show up.
We'll shoot for a early summer, midsummer.
Yeah.
Because that is the one concern that Justin brought up. The one concern I did have is we could get a lot on our plate that comes out of that, and then we're moving into the budget. I want to make sure that we have for budget planning purposes for everyone involved here, that we can take whatever we get out of this process and start this next budget cycle with moving in the right direction.
You don't want
Yeah.
people to start working on their budgets and then all of a sudden you throw it on. Oh, yeah, we said,
Right.
none of us wants, we don't want to go there.
And I do want to reiterate my appreciation last year for the agenda or the budget being very well constructed in November, not a last minute. So I wouldn't want to jeopardize that again this year.
And we're gonna make some further changes. Like I said, we're planning on trying to get a budget that meets the criteria for the GFOA's excellence award. So, but this is part of that. Like I said, it does require that you have strategic goals and plans as part of the budget. So we'll definitely be wrapping this into the budget. I have nothing else, sir.
I have one question. Why does everybody always sit on this side of the room? Nobody ever,
That's
so it's only like one or two people and everybody's always full on this side. All right, anyway, move to close the work session.
Have a motion to close the work session. Second by Alderman Whitman, and we are adjourned.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Now we are adjourned. Well, it's.
You always sit over there.
I'm deaf and disappear, so if I don't sit over there.
Yeah.
Been chasing my tail, so.
Huh?
Yep. So you asked about the BMP. There are some misinformation.
Talking about where fire is
I
at.
have to look at.
Expires.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I go by.
Wait.
Well, I would just like some preliminary locations and sizing based on rough calculation.
Somebody is.
No, just showing
Did
that
they,
it
they,
will.
they not have some flagmen? Because when I drove by today, oh, really? Because when I drove by today, they had flagmen out. So.
Not always.
Show, calculate. So you'll have to do some rough calculation.
When I was coming here tonight, like quarter to 6 or whatever, it was,
Okay, and again.
there was nobody to use flags.
Location,
I started to chat a little bit. I saw a car coming, so I knew I couldn't pull out. And then I'm like, please, nobody hit me. So then just pulled out. Yeah, it's been bad on our side for a bit. Somebody hit the stop sign, but
Which one?
the one in front of Starting Acres.
Oh, really?
It's like,
well, so there's a
But-
lot of concern.
yeah, I think Joe said he's.
I thought I saw it. Did somebody knock the sign over? It looked like your street sign was like the old one.
Oh, the wood one?
Yeah,
Maybe. There's
looked
not
like
very-
it was cracked off,
Oh, could
like
be.
part of the sign. Maybe it was just the way it was designed. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't noticed that. There's only a few hills left next. But those guys, yeah, it's been kind
Pretty good.
of. Pretty dangerous.
I'll email the Ameren guy, the Ameren contact,
I'll
and
make
tell
sure.
him, hey, notice.
please.
No, I
Well, it's a union job. so-
I literally leave my house.
Yeah.
I leave my house 2 or 3 times a day.
Sorry.
Work, errands and stuff. And I'm telling you, I'll leave, I'll leave the grass and I'll come back. 5 minutes later. Either still laying there or I'll just get it around.
Thanks,
Going crazy.
So.
Now you know why your gas bill is so high.
I'll make a call. I'll make a call. to-
Spot.
I can make a call. I know.
It's the old,
Say.
for sure, yeah, I'll call Amherst tomorrow about the right of way, or not the right of way, the site distance issue.
I think it's- I want to make sure that it's accommodating
With them.
current storms.
Existing, well.
Yes.
Sound.
Oh, yeah. Say it again.
How you doing?